Hey y'all, it's your Queen Pimp Sun Kiss coming through right quick, right fast, maybe, with a Royale review for The Best Man, The Final Chapters, Episode 2. And this will be part 2. So if you haven't seen all of the other reviews that I have done for this show thus far, the first episode is like 3 parts, honey, and the first part to the second episode, they are all in a playlist that I have created. So get on over there and get your live. And without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into episode 2, part 2 of the review. So y'all know by the end of part 1, we left off with Shelby and Xiomara having a very nice, nasty confrontation, where the cherry was so elegantly placed on top by Xiomara, letting Shelby know that she knew that Shelby had done let her kitty cat pounce all over Quentin. And Xiomara follows up by asking Shelby, "How does my sugar bowl taste?" Tisk! With this beautiful view that you see here on your screen, we are transitioned into the next scene, which is the ayahuasca ceremony. And before they get straight into it, we have them entering the beach. I'm trying to figure out why Harper has this type of hat on. It's a nice hat. I just don't understand it for the occasion. Howsoever, as they're entering, he and Robin are discussing, the time that she's been having and some type of ceremony that she went to or whatever that she was really enjoying, and she was telling Harper about it. And he notices that his drink has been tampered with. So he asks her, like, "Yo, did you put something in my drink?" And she's like, "Yeah, I put some mama wanna some type of herb or additive seasoning or whatever. Something that is holistic and plant-based, I assume. In his drink that's gonna help him get his sap rising, if you know what I mean." So he like, "Huh?" And she repeats, it's a little shum. You wanna get the drink with the drink, yeah, wow. And he like, oh, okay then. And if you notice, you may not notice, but if you notice, Lance is lingering close behind them, eavesdropping. Trying to see what they're talking about, because he got an agenda and an issue that he needs to solve. So he stops Harper in his tracks, calls him back or whatever to be like, "Yo, had this honey in my room earlier. We was getting it going as we was getting it going. You know what I'm talking about? And I couldn't get it going, if you know what I'm talking about." And Harper is reassuring him. He like, oh, it happens to the best of us. And he like, who is the best of us? What is you talking about? But I heard what you and Robin was talking about. And I heard you got the hookup. So I'm trying to see if you can hook a brother up. And Harper's like, "Okay, well, I get with Robin. I'll see if we can get things, make the thing do what the thing do." And if you also must know, Harper thought that Lance was holding him back to discuss what had happened the previous night, if you will. You know, when Lance snapped out on him about the whole book turn movie situation, he thought Lance was still being, salty with him about that. But I just, felt the need to mention that. It's kind of going to be important once I get to talking about the imbalances of the value that Harper shows his friendships versus his marriage. But we're going to hold that thought, huh? We're going to hold that thought, and we're going to get to the ceremony of it all. And so Xiomara is opening the ceremony with this very high speech, okay? Talking about the extents and the entities of intimacy that they have reached, okay? With all of their fake wokeness, while the stuff that they're talking about is very much so real. Forming non-sexual intimacy through a psychedelic type of trip healing, purge, if you will, all that. But as they are doing the absolute most, your girl Regina Hall with the comedic timing is everything, because she said exactly what I was thinking when I first saw this scene. With all of the antics that they were giving, I said, are they about to go to town in front of them? And that's exactly what Regina Hall said. They've been in front of us. Are they about to? Whoa, what type of party is this? And so then they introduced Bobo somewhat another, who is also William, who is also sexy black boy Joy Chocolate, that has been lingering around Jordan for the entire trip. And he is coming out as the shaman for the ceremony, and Jordan is looking like Bobo. That man's name is William, honey. So he is saging the thing down. He is doing a chant. Amani, oh, Amani, oh. I wonder what that means. Well, apparently Amani in Swahili means peace, and in Arabic it means wishes. So one would assume that he is evoking and praying for peace and wish fulfillment over the ceremony and over all of the people involved. Mhm. And so throughout the intro of it all, Kuyamara is telling them about it. Jordan is clocking your boy Bobo and he is acknowledging her. He ain't playing like he don't know her or nothing. And Q is raving about his experience of the herb. And Shelby is being rude, talking about, we got it. Let's get this show on the road. And so they indeed do get the show on the road. Now, child, after they go through down the line to get everybody else's consent about the herb, and I'm gonna just also pinpoint that Merch shows some apprehension while everybody else is pretty much ready to go on ahead and make the thing do what the thing do. Okay? And so there is a gesture right there that Xiomara does to Q to get his attention, perhaps. But it's also weird to me, especially given everything else that has come with Xiomara and all of the oddities that she seems to have influenced over Q and the obvious trickster vibe that the rest of the buddies seem to get off of her. And it makes me wonder if she did some type of blood magic on him. She did some type of juju on him. Did she put him in a jar? Did she write his name on rose petals and soak in a bath with him? What did she do? And along with wondering what she may have done, it also makes me wonder if the herb messed around and undid it. But we're going to stick a pin in that. And Bobo goes around and fills everybody cup. Well, he don't really feel it because apparently it don't take that much. But he goes around and doses everybody up. And they are taking it ever so smiling. And child, it don't take no time for it to kick in as well. And it's very interesting to me what this ceremony and this experience, these experiences of the herb end up revealing about our characters. And it's so funny how Merchants is extra funny, but the simplicity and like they didn't stay on them long. But Harper and Shelby really trips me out. So as you can see, apparently the herb is not good in taste. It probably tastes very earthy. I haven't ever had ayahuasca. I've had some of the others, but not ayahuasca in particular. But if you have ever done herbs at any capacity, you know that they can taste very earthy. But it ain't about the taste, child. It's about getting through that little piece of bitterness so that you can get through to the truth. Your truth, okay? And we can use that saying in a multitude of ways. Fighting through that bite of bitterness to get to your truth that will lead you to your peace and wish fulfillment. That, when you think about it also, has revealed itself to be a recurring theme in this show as well. And I'll be sure to make parallels when necessary. Howsoever, let's talk about these reactions to the tea. And so we see Kuyamara here having some sort of spasm. And Harper, okay, you see Harper, child, and you see Shelby. So we get a good insinuation and implementation that Shelby is full of crap. Just full of crap. The booty is bootying, but she's full of crap, and she must go release it. Unfortunate. Now, we're going to get back to Harper. We're going to focus on Jordan real quick. We're going to focus on Jordan real quick. She calls over Bobo and she gets to really revealing herself and spilling her heart out to him. Not in a way that is like doting over him, but spilling her heart out to him about herself, about her truth, about what she has truly been going through. And the general consensus of it is that she has been severely overworked. Not just overworked in her job and her career as that is concerned, but also overworked by the expectations and standards that she pressures herself with, which are still rooted in the expectations that she feels like others or the world, society, her career has for her. A way that she kind of feels like she has to imprison herself in order to be successful. Imprisoning herself specifically from connections, intimate, long-lived connections with other people. She expresses how if she was let known that she only had 6 months to live, she would live. She would do all the things that she never thought she could. She would spend more time with loved ones and catch up and just have a ball. And with that being said, I feel like we should all ask ourselves why we often need to feel like we're about to lose in order to start really fighting for ourselves and loving on ourselves and being there for ourselves. Why does it take such drastic circumstances in order to really tap in and do the spiritual things that we know would better the quality and quantity of our life. Why are we so resistant to allowing ourselves to be great in more than one way? Because a lot of us are resistant to allowing ourselves to be great in general, but some of us imprison ourselves to being great at just this one thing, or thinking that we only have to seek fulfillment from just this one thing, when in actuality, if we would allow ourselves to be flexible and to be balanced, we would be more free and fearless in giving our energy and giving our passion to more than just what we think we're obligated to or what we feel obligated to. We make more time for leisure and make more time for tenderness and delicacy. And with that being said, peep how serene Candace looks in the background, just getting her entire life, just being and enjoying the moment. And she has her awakening, which we're going to talk about, but just look at how she's allowing herself to be in it, allowing herself to embrace what is embracing her, which is exactly what Jordan is struggling with. She's struggling with allowing herself to be at peace, and she's struggling to embrace what embraces her. One thing we know about Jordan is not only does she struggle to make time for her friends, but she often and has often turns down men and gives them the cold shoulder that she may actually have a lot of passion for and a lot of interest in. She turns them down for the sake of her job and for the sake of maintaining this image and persona that she feels like is now what she has to do, her obligation. And the herb has brought her into a space where she feels free and freeing herself from that. And not only seeing her truth, but purging it to this man who she has been repeating those behaviors with. He's been showing her obvious interest and she has been giving him the cold shoulder. And she only started to do the most when he started to play her dust and give her the same energy that she had been giving him. Though he did it in a much sweeter and more respectful way. Not that she was disrespectful. I just mean that he was very tender and delicate and sweet about his way of going about everything. So yeah, in a nutshell, I like how they did this with Jordan, because I feel like in any other rom-com type situation, they would have had her character expressing all of her love and passion for him and talking mostly about how she feels about him and what she likes about him and what she wants to get from him and da da da. But instead, she was written to do it in a more divine way, where she basically makes herself vulnerable in a real way. Not just talking about what she loves about him, ego pumping him, but literally pulling the veil off of the persona that she is so used to functioning in and allowing him to see the real her. Because her mask is looking like she always has it all together. She always knows the answer. She always knows the next step. But this particular experience has allowed her to, like I said, be vulnerable in a more authentic way, where she is snatching that mask off to reveal that she does not have it all figured out, that she does not have all the answers, and that she does in fact need at least someone that she can have long-standing, stable companionship with. So in the middle of her tangent, Jordan eventually passes out. And I can say as a spiritual worker myself that when things like that happen in the middle of a spiritual awakening, is usually because that person in general is overworked. Like Jordan has a habit and functionality of overworking themselves and being overactive. So the body takes over when the mind has gone so long of ignoring the body, trying to tell it that it needs rest. So with that being said, the person can pass out, or just pass out into a deep sleep and recharge and rejuvenate. And then when the body feels like it's in a better state to be able to process and purge and face this spiritual awakening more effectively, the person will come back to consciousness and do what they need to do. And we have a bit more body talking entities when we get to Murch and Candace. And Murch is talking about he can't move. He can feel a whole lot, but he can't move. And I feel like this is where Murch is having a real awakening about his perspective and his struggles with his manhood. Because spiritually, masculinity is active. And Murch is not the most active in the stereotypical masculine sense. So while a wise person may can see that Murch's masculine and feminine energy is well-rounded and well-integrated, Murch in his friend group and in, the society of men who subscribe to stereotypical and toxic senses of masculinity, they may not feel like Murch is the most masculine. They may call him a simp. And most of this may have to do with the fact that Murch is not enthused or overconsumed with being overly active in the pouncing kitty acts of it all, nor is he overly consumed with acts of aggression, if you will, okay? So that may be the truth of an insecurity that Murch has, that he is facing and coming to terms with through experiencing the earth. Whereas he perceives it as he's feeling a lot, but he's not moving, meaning he has a lot of feelings about a lot of things that ultimately trigger him and tell him that he needs to act, move, do something about it, but he doesn't seem to be able to move, act, or do anything about it. And in a lot of cases, we see, and we will see, that Murch has problem-solving skills. He has the ability to process and express his emotions for the most part. However, because he doesn't do it in the way that most people would expect him to, i.e. his friends and other men, he may channel that as he doesn't do anything. As in he doesn't do anything worthwhile or valuable as it concerns defending, if you will, his manhood. And I do believe it goes beyond his manhood. I also believe that it is tied to his placement in his friend group and his placement in society, which causes him to question potentially his placement in his household, therefore his placement in his family dynamics. And that's why I said too that when he had that conversation with Candace that morning, that it was more than him just missing his friends. He is doing things in a certain way, and in certain ways not listening and paying attention to Candace the way that he should, being obsessed over other things, because he is trying to figure himself out. He is trying to get secure and stable in his placement. So he doesn't feel as though he can give Candace the attention that she needs and that she deserves, because he feels like potentially what he's already given and doing is not good enough. So he may feel like Candace feels like it isn't good enough either, even though she has been expressing and showing her attraction to him and her desire for him and her belief and faith in him this entire time. But because of his mindset, he hasn't been able to fully embrace it. He hasn't been able to embrace what is embracing him. And that could definitely also play a role in his perception of, I can feel, but I can't move. I feel all this love and value around me, but I don't seem to be able to embrace it, love, or value it efficiently. And so we pop over to Candace, and she is having my type of enlightenment, honey. She has reached the point of seeing and greeting and communicating with her higher self, which shows that she was very far in her spiritual path all along. And the type of awakening that she's having in particular, this is her higher self basically telling her that she is having this experience specifically so that she can help others have that type of experience in that way, but also in different ways. This is leading Candace literally to being called to be a holistic herbal healer. And we'll talk more about that journey when we really get in the depths of her journey doing that. But I just wanted to say that I really, really love that they implemented this into the show as a whole, that it is her character experiencing it, and that they did it exactly as they did it, because this is exactly how these types of things be happening for people. Like when people say that they have literally been called to do something, this is what they mean. Now, it's case by case on whether or not you literally see a full personification of your higher self, and you don't always need a psychedelic herb to get there, though they do help. But when you have those moments of awakening, or you come across people who have had moments of awakening and they say to you that they were called to do something, that this is their calling, a lot of the time that's the type thing that they really went through. Some type of experience that took them to a high-end level of consciousness to where they were able to effortlessly and fearlessly see their higher selves and see themselves at their fullest potential. Like, for instance, look at Candy Lil O'Hare right there. And then look at the hair of her higher self, okay? Okay? Now look, the wig from the costume shop ain't the best, but you get what I'm saying. And like I said, when we get deeper into Candy's journey of her holistic healing and all that, I am going to discuss a little more about why I feel like she has this chosen one type of energy and storyline. Because in the pursuit of happiness, not the movie, but the concept of the pursuit of happiness, which is definitely a theme in this entire franchise, right? It is very interesting that, see, look, me, she like, me, you choose me, I'm the one. Right, exactly. So, and it might, it might end up being a whole video in itself as to, what is so special about Candy, or the type of person, the type of being that Candy is, that made it so easy for her to literally embrace and have a whole purpose finding, purpose given conversation with her higher self while everyone else is scrambling, child, while everyone else is scrambling to find what it is that their purpose is in life and what is going to ultimately bring them that sense of satisfaction that they have been craving. We get Candy, and this is just episode 2, and they just did ayahuasca, and Candy is immediately met with her higher self being revealed one of her major purposes in life, outside of being a mom, a wife, and a martyr, if I'm using that term correctly, and a martyr for the youth. What else, what was her ultimate purpose? And it is being a holistic healer. And she's in the perfect place to do so. She's made so much of her life and her career. So the position that she's in school, and the position that she is being a principal / owner of a school and humanitarian for the youth and all of that, she's in a perfect place to not only be a holistic healer, but start the conversation and the real reveals, being the fact that she's in positions of power in this particular, in her career, which perfectly aligns with it all. She's in the perfect place to be able to use her studies to bring awareness to how herbal healing and herbal medicinals are actually better and actually cure and resolve illnesses, ailments, inflammation, diseases, viruses, and things of that nature, whereas a lot of prescribed pharmacy over-the-counter medication is diluted and polluted and only temporarily relieves what is going on. It doesn't cure it, just only temporarily relieves it, and 9 times out of 10, the more you take it, you build up a tolerance to it, or a resistance to it. It doesn't work as well as it does, and when the pain comes back, when the ailments and symptoms and all of that comes back, is much worse. So it's like it's progressing it so that it can do what? Take your money, have you keep going back so you can keep trying to treat the issue. Oh, okay. So yeah, you see where I'm going with this? Do you see where we going with this? I see where you going with this. Okay. And so that's literally said in much shorter words in the conversation that she's having with her higher self. Candace starts to say, plants, medicine, plants heal. Plants are healers. We ignore healers. Say it ever so perfectly, because I ain't gonna lie, bro. That is exactly how it be. If you know, you know. But plants are healers. They are. Like, trees literally breathe out the oxygen that we need. And we breathe out the element that they need. And so we ignore healers. Let's talk about that real quick as it concerns the plants. A lot of people use plants as seasonings, as additives, use plants as decorations, use plants as accessories, little trinkets and stuff like that, that doesn't seem to have much meaning, right? Using it for like superficial reasons, if you will. Not realizing or giving them the total gratitude and attention to the fact that they have healing qualities. They are here to be not just our decoration, but our medicine. We ignore healers. And not only do we ignore the healing plants, but a lot of people tend to ignore actual healers, ignore the advice of healers, ignore the premonitions, ignore the experiences, ignore the wisdom of healers, all to have to keep turning back around and say, oh my gosh, you were right, you said. Well, you could have just listened in the first place. How many examples do you need, okay? Okay, so it's just like so many different ways that this scene and this storyline and the way they introduced it with Candace is so unique, while at the same time it is so very relatable. And in the midst of her having this awakening, she starts to like kind of have a sensual orgasm, if you will, off of the awakening. Like she becomes overwhelmed by it all and starts to like kind of like hyperventilate and cry and just go through the motions of it all. And Merch is like, Candace, 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 what's happening? Are you having an orgasm? I want to have an orgasm too. And so Merch is also feeling this feeling of readiness, but he just still doesn't seem to be able to move himself. And Candace is doing a very good job of, it seems like she has a natural ability. Maybe it comes from stripping, child, being able to silence the noise that is around you. She does a very good job at being able to silence all of the different types of noise that is around her and being able to just zone in on herself and what it is that she needs to do in that moment. And that may very well be one of the qualities that makes her a chosen one. And so she and her higher self literally have the exchange where her higher self says, the people are asleep. It is on you to awaken them. And she says, yes, I will awaken them. I will. Yes. So she accepts the calling and we love her for it. And so we just gonna pop on over to Harper real quick. Child, what is happening? Taye Diggs often reminds me of Tommy Davidson when he starts to do his funny little diddles in his roles. Taye Diggs is freaking hilarious to me, and I love him and April together, but that's beside the point. Child, what is happening? What is all of that? I couldn't force nothing deep to say if I tried about the antics that he is giving in the midst of his ayahuasca trip, child. But what I can deduce for certain is that this has revealed that he is thoroughly... I wonder if they told Taye Diggs what his character's enlightenment choice was, or if he decided for himself. I wonder how much he was directed in this scene, if they just said, play high and show us Harper's true passion. And he just did that. And we can deduce that his true passion is, of course, writing. And that is what he is actively trying to personify with his body language to us, that he is crazy as hell and he loves to write, child. Writing is his life. And from there, we get another magnificent view, and we catch up with Lance trying out. These look like some shrooms to me. I'm assuming that those are a type of shroom. So that's the stuff that he is trying to get his sap rising, if you will, because you know he having some struggles or whatever. And he up here gnawing on the stuff for a little half a second and then just throwing it down and getting frustrated. Like, sir, you guys to give it time, and you also needs to give your body a rest, because what it could just be is that your body, your peen, wants to rest. But from there, he gets distracted as he sees Miss Jasmine outside preparing for her a good job. Okay, he goes on and walks out there and starts a conversation with her, and all up in her business or whatever. What you doing? What you got going? What is happening here? And you know, she greets him ever so elegantly, as she does, and it's like, you know, is everything fine? You seem to be preoccupied. Jasmine is very like in tune with the fact that something is amiss with Lance. And that is one reason why I hope that there ends up being more seasons of this series, because I want to get to know Jasmine some more. I want to get to know more about a lot of different elements and characters, but specifically Jasmine, I want to get to know more about her, because I want to know what made her so like in tune with Lance so quick, like talking about like who does he remind her of or whatever. Maybe he reminds her of herself at one point. The world may never know, child. But he is coming off like shifty and uneasy, like he's not sure of himself, like he's not the regular suave, debonair, got it all together Lance that, you know, he is usually known for. He's kind of jittery and all over the place and whatnot. And that could also be a part of why she, you know, picks him out and is like, you know, what's going on? Are you good? Is everything fine? Because you seem to be preoccupied. Now, I wonder, is she referring to him getting around all around town? Or is she just picking up on the energy and the body language of it all that's right in front of her. Along with the fact that she peeped that he is not with the rest of the crew down there at the doing the ayahuasca ceremony. And he gonna say to her, yeah, all that plant medicine, I don't really think it's for me. And this is where I feel like Lance's pious, Christian, hypocritical persona kind of kicks in a bit. Whereas you're not into plant medicine for the healing, cleansing, and awakening of your soul, but you were just into the plant medicine for the sake of your Long John Silver. And folks really be like that, child. It's the hypocrisy and walking contradictions for me. Okay? This also makes me feel like Lance was definitely going through a stage where, and this is getting into the spiritual elements of the show as well. We've known that Lance is quite spiritual. He's quite religious. And I feel like Lance was in a phase of awakening anyway. He was just dragging his feet through it. And the ayahuasca would have just, kind of gave him a good boost off to it. And perhaps he could have known deep down that he wasn't ready for all of that. And that's definitely what I feel like, that he wasn't ready to face himself, his real self, his highest potential. And he has been dissociating and trying to numb and ultimately self-harming through all of these hypersexual acts and this hypersexual tirade that he has been on. All of that, including him bowing out of the ayahuasca ceremony, because him, wanting to do the stuff for his Long John Silver, that definitely, plays a part. He's choosing the... Ooh, child. I'm going to save that in-depth conversation for another video. But I'm going to wrap this particular part of the scene up and this point that I'm making with Lance and his dissociation. I'm just going to wrap it up by saying and reiterating that much of what we've seen of Lance up until this point, and we can use it to apply to when we were first introduced to Lance in the first movie. He has a character trait of numbing himself with excessive Long John Silver slanging behavior. And it makes me wonder, what part of him exactly is he afraid to face? And what is he suppressing? What is he numbing? That's why I really want for there to be more seasons so that we can get into each character's childhood. Because I feel like that's one of the main elements and aspects that we are missing from each character. We have like sprinkles of what went on in their childhood. And of course we got their college life, but we don't know the nitty gritty of what went on in their childhood, what type of families they come from specifically. We are getting more information about Quentin's family background in this season, pretty much because his father is more present in this season, of course, because he had the wedding, and then there'll be some more things with the business and all of that. So I'm hoping that in the upcoming seasons, it kind of be like each season gives us more insight on one or two of the characters' childhood background in the midst of, everything else going on, like they did with this season with Quentin. But anywho, this particular part of the exchange with Lance and Jasmine wraps up with her asking him, what is he going to do to get back on track? And he goes to stumbling and fumbling all over his words. And she like, well, I'm about to take a jog. And she takes off. Well, no, she said, I'm about to take a jog. Let's see if you can keep up. And he starts to fumbling and bumbling and boosting his own ego about all the stuff that he done in sports. And she done already took off. So he tried after her. And so there's actually another scene in between the parts of their interaction. But I'm going to get their whole interaction out the way first. So we pick back up with them as she's led him to the top of a mountain somewhere out there on the island. And they're having a conversation. Apparently, they have gotten to a place where Lance feels comfortable speaking fluently with her about his grief and his grieving process of the death of Mia. And he is expressing how, he know that grief has no time limit, and he feels like God has stopped speaking to him, which I would beg to differ, and Jasmine also would beg to differ, as she responds by saying, well, God doesn't always tell us exactly what we want to hear. And I feel like that goes along with what I was saying about him resisting the change and the awakening that God is trying to take him through. Therefore, he has turned his ears deaf to God. He has stopped listening to God. It's not that God has stopped talking to him. He gets frustrated and decides that he doesn't want to hear the message that's coming through to him. And you can say that Jasmine's presence, as it concerns him, is somewhat of a divine intervention, because Jasmine is low-key, high-key operating as a messenger from God. It's literally as if God has been speaking delicately to him through Jasmine. Not to mention, a meaning of the name Jasmine is God's gift. And she states a line to him that basically conveys that you should understand the love and the teachings of God through your understanding and functionality as a parent. And he says to her, well, I haven't been much of a parent since Mia passed away. And that stands out to me in two different ways. For one, that is self-aware of him, very much so self-aware of him, to state that he hasn't been much of a parent since she left. He completely moved out of the house into a loft away from the kids. Another form of dissociation, a form of abandonment also, but a form of physical dissociation from his responsibilities, from his life, from his kids, from other extensions and variations of himself. Your kids are an extension of yourself. So we see him even avoiding himself by avoiding his kids. So this is all also low-key, high-key stating that he's missing the message because he's not present. He's not present in the environment, the circumstance that he's been placed in now. He's not present with his soul family, the tribe that God has gifted him to support and help him navigate through this life. He's missing the message because he is not present. Now, his statements about not having been much of a father since Mia left, one side of that I feel like is coming from somewhat of an abstract perspective, as Lance is someone who is somewhat obsessed over image. And I feel like Mia was someone who knew who he truly was, and also knew that she had to support him in maintaining a specific type of image. So a lot of the times what happens in these types of dynamics is the woman, the wife, the mother ends up being low-key, high-key, somewhat of a single mom while being married in a relationship. In this case, and in many cases, it is because the husband works a lot. Now, in some cases, the man literally does have to work all the time in order for their family to live the lifestyle that they have and in order to create generational wealth. And on another end of that, there are men who use that to their advantage to be able to dissociate, not be present in all of their responsibilities, and also in efforts to live double, triple, quadruple lives. And I feel like that can apply to Lance in a way, because we can see now at this point that he has a trauma response coping mechanism of dissociating. And a part of dissociation is living double, triple, quadruple lives so that you never have to face whatever it is that you're trying to run from. Oh, that's why I want to get into Lance's childhood, because I want to know the roots of that specifically. But I said all that to say that a lot of the time, the way women in those types of circumstances end up coping with the kids is yeah, they have mastered the art of protecting the man's image outside of the household to the public, but they also carry that into their dynamic with the kids, and they protect the father's image with the kids, and they create this illusion that makes it seem like the father is more present and more active than he actually is. But in real life, the 24/7 routine and work that it is to actually be a parent to one child, let alone what they had, 3 or 4. And Lance was definitely working a good majority of the time because he was still playing football. Yeah. Mia was definitely more than likely, I'm sure they probably had nannies, but still, that's not Lance being there for all of the cricks and crannies of parenthood. But I'm sure Mia created that image and created that illusion that made it feel and seem like he was. When in real life, he was probably more so a FaceTime father and a celebratory ceremony type of father. The father that you only talk to on FaceTime and he only shows up for holidays, birthdays, and graduations and stuff like that. Test. But Mia was so good at being the type of wife and mom that she was and protecting his image in the way that she did that it created an illusion or delusion for Lance also that made him feel like he was the father that she made him out to be, when in actuality he wasn't. So him saying, I'm not much of a father without her, well, no, because you weren't that much of a father in an active manner in the first place. But she was doing everything that she was doing and helping you, well, enabling your identity issues. She was so good at enabling your identity issues. Oh my gosh. It's funny, but when you really think about it, it's kind of not funny. But let me wrap up the point, child. Mia was so good at enabling his identity issues that he really started to believe that he did more than he actually did. So Mia passing away was the ultimate wake-up call to, I think, a lot of things as it concerns what he did and didn't do, all leading up to that point. And when Mia went on to glory, it probably sent, it definitely sent his whole world crashing down on his head. But not just from a way of grieving her, but also from the inevitability now of having to face himself and be with himself. And so, yeah, I pretty much already said both sides of what I felt like he was conveying when he said that he didn't feel like much of a father without her. And just to reiterate and get to the next couple of points, he wrapped up in the delusion of what she allowed the kids to believe and allowed everybody else to believe about his active display and functionality of being a father, or lack thereof. And also because he wasn't the 24-hour parent. He wasn't all in the cricks and crannies of what it really is to be a parent actively. He ran away from his responsibilities and chose to dissociate. And so we get to wrapping up their scene as he follows up and says that he just feels very incomplete without Mia. And this is definitely also showing that Lance is codependent, confirming it more so, that Lance is codependent. And definitely not, disregarding his grief. His response to it is just saying a lot about him. And Jasmine lets it blatantly be known that she knows that he has been slanging his Long John Silver all around the cabins, okay? And she says that, I know you're not finding very much completion in your other interactions since you've been out here. And he said, yeah, she right, and he ain't proud and all of that. And she like, well, maybe you should focus on what would make you proud, and her. And that, you know what I'm saying? That shoots a rocket through his socket, boy. Lance done got a divine awakening. So she says she better go, and they go. Now, the writers of the Best Man franchise know that they do toxic fairy tales well, honey. So we get a scene with Shelby and Quentin, and they have a real conversation that turns the tables of their decades-long situationship. And, she walks up as he is standing on the beach at the edge of the ocean, looking out amongst the horizon. And she talks about the deep cleanse that she just had from the ayahuasca. You know, I said it revealed that she's full of crap. And so Quentin responds to her and is like, well, hopefully it cleared out some of those demons that you had running around inside you, child. And she like, "Ugh, okay, whatever, cut the crap. Let's get to the nitty gritty. This ain't you. Who are you? Who is this shaman dude that you trying to portray yourself to be? Because it's not given. I'm not believing it. You need more people." And he's like, yes, this is me. It's just an evolved version of me. And how would you know? Because you never even sought to ask who I actually was. And so she gives a rundown of like, you know, you crabs, you a rude, sarcastic dude, you a free spirit, you not with all of this like real spiritual discipline and all of that. It's an act and it's an act. And she like, you never asked me about who I actually am. And he was like, no, she was like, you never asked me about who I actually am. All you ever wanted is just sex. And he was like, well, that's all you offered me. Tisk. Pussy around everything. Fuck that noise, okay? I feel like that's kind of a cop-out on his end. But it's things like that that just make you be like, when men show you who they are, believe them. And when a man says something to you like that, it's a full display that you honestly have the power in the relationship. 'Cause no matter what he say, like he done said that, like clearly I have power in the relationship. Anywho, we're gonna see. We finna see how that plays out with them in just a sec, right? And so this is low-key, high-key, them removing the mask from each other and from themselves. As that is a reoccurring theme here. But see, this couple is getting there. They are like time leaping in their relationship in a way. Because they're having this real conversation. Like the type of situationship that they have in real life, they should have never worked, right? Like how we usually think of it and see it and stuff. They should have never worked. But they did. And I think it's because of this moment right here. This real deep conversation that they are having, saying everything that they never said before, asking the questions that they never said before, being raw, straight up, straight to the point, fearless in their expressions of their likes and dislikes and their love and hate for each other. And I feel like that made their frequency of acceptance very potent. Because you honestly make it a lot easier when you just lay it all out on the table and make it clear to your other person about what it is and what it's going to be and what they, you know, got to expect. And vice versa. And I feel like that also helps you choose your battles in your relationship more also. And we'll parallel that as it concerns them as we get on down the line in the series. But he also says to her that Xiomara enlightened him in a way similar to what I just said about what's happening with him and Shelby in this scene, where he said that Xiomara showed him the best of her and the worst of her and just allowed him to embrace her, and she embraced him. And that elevated his sense and understanding and value of intimate connection and intimate companionship. And I feel like Shelby is definitely being she's being transparent and real in this conversation, and I definitely feel like she's also taking notes for her tactics as well. And he says how it seems as though she's always been hiding behind some wall that she's built up, and she's like, she's got to protect herself. And he's like, from what? Like, there's got to be more than that. And I wondered that as well, and that is why I want to get into their childhoods, because what does Shelby feel like she is protecting herself from? But child, they closed that out by her like kind of just brushing him off and being like, whatever, lay off the ayahuasca, because she was like, he acting like a guru and all this other stuff. And she was like, his wedding gift will be in the mail. And then she like clowns him because I guess they are registered with Target. And he like, she the global spokesperson. So that scene closed out. And in the actual show, it goes to the scene that I just talked about with Lance and Jasmine. But I just went ahead and did both of their scenes together because it was like, you know, a continuation thing and all of that. So yeah. Anywho, pick the view real quick and we pick up with Jordan and William/Bobo, okay? And they are basically discussing the turning point that happened in their relationship interaction and all of that through the ayahuasca. And she's just asking him straight up, like, who are you? A shaman, a tech whiz, a photographer, a lawyer, a doctor, a corner boy, cook, chef, chemist? Yeah, I don't even care, just as long as he don't say bye-bye. Nah. She like, you can put a chip in my brain or something, you tracking me? And he like, nah, I dabbled in a couple of things, you know what I'm saying, but it ain't like that or whatever. And he's just like, I just hope you got something out of your experience. And she's like, I actually did. I realized that I need to focus on myself more, commit to self-care. Work is always going to be there. And like, basically saying that she needs to drastically switch up the pattern of her life. And he asked her, what does that entail? And so, she pretty much reiterates and elaborates on the self-care and focusing on herself and taking more risk. And one of those risks is taking a photographer, tech whiz, shaman home with her for the nights and all that. And he like, honestly, you see, he had to get, in her intimate space with it. And he like, honestly, I think I'm a bit too much for you. And apparently he wasn't even just being cocky about it. Apparently he knew something about something and knew that he had too much going on for her. I don't know what he whispered in her ear that he would do to her child, but it had her like, oh no. But apparently she was still interested in like building some type of kinship with him and seeing wherever it can go. But it seemed like just taking it slow, because whatever it was that he was putting down, because he said that was the first thing that he would put down. And then he had some more, and she stopped him like, no, you good, stay right there. But he tells her that he'll be in New York soon or whatever, and he would love to catch up with her. And she like, yeah, we can catch up. Let's do that, okay? So that's where we leave off with them. I feel like Jordan and her experience with the ayahuasca got her to a place of shameless honesty. Whereas I feel like Jordan has always pretty much been honest with herself. In a way, she's had a hard time being honest with other people as it concerns when she don't have it all together, and when she's kind of falling apart, when she's stressed out, when she needs help, when she needs someone to confide in, or someone to just kind of like snatch her out of her comfort zone and take her to paint the town red type shit. And her like pouring it all out to your boy, it really seems like that's something she's never ever done. But in this case, it's like she kind of did it with a stranger. And I'm feeling like that's saying a lot about Bobo. I feel like the way that they characterize Bobo is to be like an angel, somewhat like the way that they characterize Jasmine, but also with some differences. Bobo is kind of like a come and go type of angel thus far. He pops up in just like the most random moments, but it seems to be a warm, home feeling type essence. And you can really sense that in the way that Jordan responds to him, even before the ayahuasca and definitely after the ayahuasca. There were ways that she was looking at him and ways that like her body was moving from just showing her attention to him. And I feel like Nia Long did a really good job at showing how flittery and fluttery and prissy and dainty women can get when a whole, well-rounded, multi-dimensional, stable man is in her presence. And like many of the characters, we'll have more to say about their responses and outcomes from the ayahuasca ceremony as we get on down throughout the series. So we transition and we get another beautiful view, and we pick up with Candace and Merch. And Candace is talking about how, she knew that the ayahuasca ceremony would be something relaxing and beneficial, but she didn't really know that it would be as deep and profound and life-changing as it actually has turned out to be. It seems like her being able to access her higher self in that way ended up allowing her to recognize how she may have been selling herself short internally as it concerns how she has seen herself up into this point. Because she states that once she, heard that they would be receiving the reward and that she would be accepting it and, speaking for it, she started to really question herself as to what she did to earn that and what she had to show for it. And I definitely feel like that's a relatable feeling AF. I know a lot of people, including myself, who have gone through experiences of being rewarded, or even something so simple as a compliment having you stop in your tracks and question, okay, now what do I do with that? You have to work on your frequency of receiving, being able to receive compliments, receive praise, receive gifts, receive blessings, receive level ups, receive evolvings and elevations and things of that nature. And I believe that's definitely a large part of the realization, a large part of the turning point that Candace is having. And Murch is kind of taken aback that she has those feelings, and he's like, what? Like, everybody thinks you're amazing. Those kids think you're amazing. The parents think you're amazing. I think you're amazing. And this is another example of where I feel like Murch and Candace, as it concerns in their relationship and as individuals, honestly, I think they are the most evolved couple and the most evolved individuals of the friend group. Because something so simple also is them here having this very transparent conversation where Candace is revealing this new revelation from this very different experience that they both had together. And they had different versions of their experience. And Murch is fully invested in listening to her. He is looking directly at her, making eye contact. He, is in a lax, laid back position. He's validating what she's saying. He's responding in ways that, like I said, validate and also reassure her, and replaces the negative talk that she's kind of had over herself with positive talk. And I think it also sets into him in the middle of her expressing that throughout the trip, he hadn't been, showing how much appreciated by him she actually is. And he's been a bit neglectful of her while they've been on the trip, because he's been fixated on the whole best man thing and fixated on his own internal doubts and internal self-esteem issues as well. And I also love how, even though he is going through his own thing, that he is still able to put all of that to the side, recognize what's going on with his wife, listen to her, give her the floor, and see, look at, he's being affectionate and whatnot. He is using his body language to comfort her as she is expressing some very, tender feelings to him. See, you know what I'm saying? It's very nice. It's very refreshing to see. And that's also my point. It's very refreshing to see, because putting his own feelings and issues to the side to give his wife the floor and be so attentive about it, it's so refreshing, like, in general, and also as it concerns to some of the men on the show of the franchise, all that. And with that being said, the other men tend to struggle in some cases, a lot of cases, with allowing the women in their life to have the floor, to have the spotlight, or to share in the spotlight. And Murch and Candace seem to have that duality and that unity down packs. Very lovely to see. And with all of that said, Murch expresses to her how, he feels like they need more quality time. They need to, work on their intimacy and all of that, and how he tried to schedule her a massage appointment, but the parlors seem to be booked up. And they get a knock on the door, and they think, it's a knock on the door, let me wait for you. Anywho, they get a knock on the door, and they think that maybe, because Murch said that they had been put on a waiting list just in case something came up, for them to be able to get a spot. And so they think that that's, someone coming down to tell them that they got a spot. Well, they're not entirely wrong, It so happens to be Miss Shelby at the door, honey. Miss Shelby is at the door. She steps in real hot and says, Murch, I am not here for you. Move aside. I need Candace. And she strolls up on Candace, and she like, girl, I done bought out the massage parlor. So now we see why the massage parlor was booked up, because Shelby done came in and drop the bag on the folks. And she is putting this on the table as an offering to Candace to help her step her game up with Quentin. Now, what's she gonna do to step her game up? You ask. Now, child, when I first saw this, I immediately knew just about where she was going with this. And I was like, ooh, 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 y'all snapped. Boy, I already knew it was about to be a sight to see. So Merch is trying to put his foot down, like, we got plans. We supposed to be spending the evening together. And this is exactly like what Harper did when he came in. Like, as soon as when they had their first conversation at breakfast and they had just decided that they were going to be, you know, together for the rest of the evening and spend time together and all that stuff. And then Harper comes in and tells Merch to find strippers and all of that good stuff. And he jumps at the opportunity. It's the same thing happening again now. Only this time, hey, Shelby is putting up a great exchange. You mean like all I gotta do is teach you a little routine like something like that, and then I'm gonna get the whole spot to myself? Oh, girl, yeah. So while Merch is trying to put his foot down, Candace is like, hush, hush, sir. I'm trying to see what's in this for me. And so, yeah, she asked Shelby what she got to do for, you know, the spa evening. And Shelby is like, Xiomara done steps her game up. It's time for me to step up mine. And so we close that scene out to transition over to Xiomara and Quentin. And Xiomara is presenting to Quentin a basically billboard poster type situation of her as the face of their Saint Pierre hotel and resort. And when I first saw this and Quentin's reaction to it, I was very confused as to why he was so bothered. But it just clicked to me what it is. It goes back to Shelby saying that both of them are peacocks, and Quentin is not the type of man to be able to be with a woman who is a peacock. And there is jealousy happening here. Quentin is feeling like Xiomara is coming in and taking over his spotlight. And he may potentially feel like his throne is at risk. Like she could come in and take his heirlooms. Like, let's say that their marriage doesn't work out and she runs off with the whole bag. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of that, his legacy started to flash before his eyes. And in a way, it goes back to what I was just saying about Merch also. He is not necessarily the type of man to be able to play the background. And I partially get his standpoint because it is like, why isn't it both of them on the billboard? And apparently he didn't know anything about this. This was a surprise to him. So it may also feel like it was done behind his back. And so, like I said, that can make him feel like his throne is at risk. Like she coming for his coin. You know what I'm saying? Even though she may not necessarily need it, she is such the attention whore and the narc that she could definitely be out to conquer and colonize. You feel me? And he's like kind of questioning her in a way like, did my daddy put you up to this? And like, when did y'all do this? This, that, and the third. And she's like, oh, we thought you'd like it. We thought you'd love the surprise and all this, that, and the third. And something about that interaction and exchange, the look on Quentin's face and him saying, you know, did my daddy put you up to this and all of that? It makes me wonder the same thing that Hart was saying at the beginning. Like, is this an arranged marriage? Is Quentin being pressured into this by his father? Because, and we'll see more of it as we get, you know, throughout the series. But there are quite a few moments where I'm like, yeah. And I think I said it before in previous videos how it does seem as though Quentin came up kind of constantly trying to escape being under the thumb and pressures of his father. So, very interesting. But Xiomara is landing on thick to convince him how great it is to have her as the face and how excited she is to be his wife and, you know, really buttering him up, okay? And she's like, I love you, Quentin Spivey. I appreciate you. And blobbity, blobbity, wumpity, wumpity. And he just kind of smirks and takes it all in, but he doesn't respond. And she's like, well, the proper response would be, I love you too, Xiomara Amani. Do I have to train my husband? And I'm like, girl, yes, you've trained him this far. Yeah, you're going to have to keep training him. Yeah. You would have to keep training him because Quentin is an old dog who is not about the new tricks of putting on a show to impress people or just get some response out of people. Quentin is about being his own man, moving to the beat of his own drum. So yeah, girl, you would have to keep training him, and honestly, eventually he would turn on you in the worst way. Tess! So he appeases her for the moment and then bids her adieu for the rest of their day, and there Harper is strolling on out with all the doubts in his face. And he like, man, I guess this is a surprise to you, huh? And he like, you know, it's all good. Quentin is kind of trying to play it down and save face. And I would say that is definitely different about Quentin, because just like I said, he is not the dude to try and save face for anyone. He is not about flexing for image or any of that. So that part is definitely out of character for him. But he calls himself putting his foot down. He flashing his tattoo of the ring that they got that is on the wrong finger. It's on the FU finger as opposed to the ring finger. Harper is clocking it and him, and it's like, my dude, that's what you like. We're really doing this. You don't have to do this if you really don't want to do this. And Q standing 10 toes down like, my dude, what you need to do is support me. And I feel Quentin, because Harper can be a Debbie Downer, but he got some points. I'm seeing the foolery. But Quentin storms off, and Harper is left there looking stupid, kind of as usual. But child, I'm gonna cut it right there at the conclusion of the second act of the second episode. And so, with all of that being said, if I do say so myself, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back through these queenly quotas for the next time. And be sure to bless my comment section with your questions and conversation. And as always, I bid you all light, love, healing, and liberation.